Welcome to Living Martial Arts with Master Ray Gale, aka the Dark Master. Living Martial Arts discusses and examines the everyday exercise, philosophy, and lifestyle of the martial arts enthusiast. The host talks about his own training, past and present, and he also interviews many martial artists to discover how they continue to live their own martial arts journey. Tune in for top tips on how to get the best out of your martial art. Or perhaps you're thinking of starting a martial art. This podcast offers you an easy way to dip your toe in. Sign up for the newsletter at livingmartialarts.com and get regular updates and training tips direct to your inbox. Follow the Dark Master on Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram at Living Martial Arts.
Hello, good afternoon. Well, no, it's good morning. It's good morning to all the Living Martial Arts podcast fans. I've got a fantastic, very, very interesting guest with me this morning. I've got Master Russell TKD MMA Dennis. Okay, I'll have to give the full title there because I think that's important and will become relevant when we talk. But how are you, Master Dennis?
Yeah, I'm great, thank you. And it's good to see you. And it'd be nice to have this chat.
Yeah. Well, thank you for agreeing to do it. I think basically with stuff like this, it's about giving information to my students personally who love listening to this, and also anyone else. There's quite a few people listening to this now, which is good. But actually, this is the first one I've done for a while. I've had a break, so we're coming back. After a few weeks now. But as I always start with, perhaps you can tell the listeners a little bit about your martial arts journey, how it started, and we can take it from there.
Okay. So I think it was back in the sort of mid '80s, and mid to late '80s, and when I was sort of 17, 18, you start going out to pubs and clubs. Let's rewind a bit more, I suppose. I think I'd always been interested in martial arts. So from 12, 13, 14, I'd often considered joining a club. I like the look of it, and it, just looked impressive. And obviously the Bruce Lee, stuff, but I just, seeing little snippets of here and there. But at that age, I just didn't have the probably the courage to go to a club, and I didn't have any friends who wanted to go. I think if I'd had a friend who was like, let's go, I might have joined some club or another. But so it took me to sort of 17, 18 when you start going out to pubs and clubs, and you see fights kick off or people getting a bit, drunk, I suppose, and aggressive, and I thought I've never had a fight in my life. What would I do if someone was having a go at me? And I thought I'd probably get punched in the face, I suppose. So I thought, it would be good to, start a martial art. And I'd been doing athletics. I was never interested in football or, a lot of sports, but athletics I enjoyed. And I was quite good at 800 meters. So, I had that interest in, and from my father being, fit and, being involved in sports, but nothing had ever particularly grabbed me. But I fancied from the self-defense really side of things, and then also fitness. Joining a martial arts. So, so I did. So I did a few months of karate. I think I did a good 6 months of kung fu. And over the years I've done, little bits of traditional jiu-jitsu, aikido, judo, bits and bobs here and there. But I did the kung fu for the longest. I think that was at least 6 months. But then I think it was a friend it was actually when I did the karate. I first heard of Taekwondo because there was a guy who had been doing the karate for a while, and but when he sparred the black belts there, he seemed to be doing really well, and he was just he was a fairly short guy, but he was using his kicks well. And I said to him, so what's happening here? And he said, oh, well, I've done quite a lot of Taekwondo. And I think he was red belt
Right.
in Taekwondo. But yeah, as I say, sparring the seniors at the karate, he was, giving them a lot of trouble. So I thought, oh, Taekwondo, I haven't never heard of that, but I'll bear that in mind. I'll put that in the back of my head if I ever get a chance to find a club. And then, a bit later, when I was doing the Kung Fu, I did hear of a Taekwondo club in Crawley, and that was run by Mr. Narditzi, who was third dan at the time, now Grandmaster Narditzi. So he was third dan, but got his fourth dan. I think I was there for 3-4 months, something like that. So he was, just got his fourth dan really, and I started there, but I still only had let's do a little bit for self-defense. And I thought, I'll train for, 6 months to a year, get some self-defense knowledge, and then, that'll be good, really. And then, but just a few weeks into the Taekwondo, I didn't have any ideas of black belt then, but just a few weeks in, I thought, wow, yeah, this is me. I really like this, and I think, I seem to be okay at it. So carried on, and now I don't know, 37 years later, 38 years later, I'm still doing it. So and I think it's when I was coming up blue belt, maybe green belt, blue tag, coming up blue belt. I thought maybe I could get black belt. Maybe that's possible, which I've never really thought about till then. And then I just carried on, and that's it really. Yeah.
Rest is history. Well, you said a few things. It's interesting. You mentioned athletics. I was a very, very keen at athletics, when I was a young lad, and I did a few sort of area trials and things. I was a good long distance runner actually, but I sort of think my my early days of going out and road running, because I was a miler in cross country runner, really sort of helped me with my early days of martial arts in the sort of training discipline. I mean, I don't know what sort of level you got to in athletics, but did you find that initially, or was it just something you dabbled with athletics?
I did run for Red Hill and Reigate Athletics Club. I ran for the school, so I did very well in school, sort of a level second school. I used to do quite a lot of cross countries. So I used to enjoy those, as long as it wasn't too muddy. When it gets really muddy and losing your trainers in the big puddles, and oh no, that's too much. But I used to like 1 or 2 mile cross country, and did that for the school. The main thing was 800 meters, which I was reasonably good at, and as I say, did very well for the. I was probably one of the top people at my school, and then did quite well into school and into club, had athletics, and travelled a little bit, only London and South East, but it's good.
It's nice to say. I was going to say you also mentioned your dad. Now, in my case, my dad was not sporty at all. in fact, my family wasn't. I was really keen on football. I was a keen footballer as well, right up until right until I started Taekwondo. Actually, my late teens, early 20s, I was still playing, but I decided I needed to give up as I became more serious in it. But none of my family, including my dad, used to be in West Indian. He used to watch cricket, a lot of that in the 60s and 70s, when they were very good. But how did your dad encourage you? What sort of things did he do?
He did a lot of sports actually, and it was because sadly he died about a year ago. June, July last year. And although I sort of realised and knew that, it's only when you're doing a talk at the funeral and you sort of talk about things and you think, actually, he was he was very well travelled before it was popular, that was a family thing. We always went on family holiday. We weren't well off at all, but I think he loved the sun and didn't like the British weather. So that was an important thing. But also he was he did bodybuilding, did a lot of swimming,
that's good.
A lot of running, and now it's very common to see people, running, either for basic fitness or people who are really into it. And a lot of people go to the gym, but particularly, people certainly our age and even in their 30s, it was, it wasn't a thing that people did. They didn't go to the gym. They didn't just go running, running around the local woods or road running. But it was something my dad did, and so regularly swam. So and as I say, it's probably only recently that I reflected on that and thought, actually, that was a bit unusual. And he wasn't pushy at all, but he was just, to whether it was press up, sit ups, trying to do a little bit at home, or I mean, I can swim, but I'm not a good swimmer at all. But the running. So I remember even at 5, 6 years old, we had some woodland near us, and we used to go, for little runs. I mean, he used to do 8 miles, 8 was quite common, sometimes 10, sometimes just 2 miles. But I remember doing, 1 or 2 miles with him when I was very small. Then, I suppose that was a thing that was in my head, that you did things like that, and it was fun. And then, so.
Yeah. Well, it's awesome because, I do try. I mean, I think it's really important, particularly in this day and age, that kids see their parents being active and fit. You'll know yourself, as a martial arts teacher, I often see kids that are really particularly quite motivated, and I look at their parents, I think, wow, that's the reason why, it tends to follow.
It so often flows, doesn't it? I mean, I don't know whether I'm a school teacher as well, so just part-time now, but school teacher for 25 years. And whether it's education or whether it's, as you say, fitness, a lot of it does flow from the parental encouragement, and just saying, oh no, this is something, it's one of many things in life it's good to do, you need to do. So you can often see that.
Well, I do know you're a teacher. I've been doing a bit of research on your Facebook, you see, and I noticed some Taekwondo techniques going on in class with tiles.
That was just yesterday. I'm mainly chemistry teacher, so I'm.
Oh wow!
That's my background, and
I have to apologise about my chemistry. My chemistry was particularly bad, but carry on. Physics was I was okay at. Chemistry, no.
Well, as a Taekwondo person, I think physics is good. I mean, you don't have to be any level of physics or biology or anything, but I suppose, it's weird because I'm a chemistry teacher, but actually the things closest to Taekwondo are biology and physics in a way. The body mechanics and bones and muscles, and whether that's knowing about how we work or how to avoid injuries, but also the physics of, force equals mass times acceleration, etc. And energy transfers. But I do a little bit of physics and a little bit of biology, and we were doing year 9 physics yesterday. So occasionally I'll bring in a few wooden boards or breeze block or bricks or roof tiles and break them, and hopefully it makes the lesson more interesting and brings it to life. And something I'll remember.
You'd be the ideal teacher. I mean, my when I left school, I was an aircraft engineer, so physics was I was a development aircraft engineer at Rolls-Royce on the Concorde initially, and then military aircraft. But so physics was needed, but chemistry I wasn't very good at, so it was probably just as well. No, I would imagine that your chemistry lessons are quite interesting. So well done you.
Always make sure with the chemistry we do something interesting and dramatic.
Definitely, that's the way that learning should be. You mentioned about local karate school as well, and I actually started with karate myself, and I remember seeing a poster with a guy flying through the air saying the most powerful martial art in the world. I'm thinking, wow, what's that? And that was Taekwondo, and I went along and I just fell in love with it, But it was quite interesting because I actually used to go down to when I started Taekwondo, there was another karate school that I used to visit just to go and fight, to go and sort of try my techniques and so on. And that was really, really good.
Just different people,
well, it was people, at that time, I suppose it was probably more traditional. A lot of the karate guys weren't really kicking so much. So there was a lot of hand techniques going in. So, but I really enjoyed it. I really loved, getting hit, and I love hitting. So it was all right. But yeah. And again, you mentioned Grandmaster, and I did see there. We had we've got a shared future. I used to see him a lot in the early days, and also his sister as well, who was very good. And
Esther, I did see.
Esther, I used to see them.
When did you start? So, what year did you start Taekwondo?
Well, I started martial arts in '75, and I started Taekwondo a couple of years after that. So it was
10 years.
I think 81 I got my black belt, and so on, my first degree, and went from there. So
that was with Riki Ha, was it?
Yeah, with Grandmaster Ree, he did all my gradings.
As everyone was up until
in those early days, there was only really a couple of organisations of Taekwondo. One was actually it was two ITF organisations, and probably WTF, which was quite small at the time. And I loved it. The early days were great. Enjoyed every single minute. I particularly love the physical side of Taekwondo, and I still love it to this day. Trying to do more press ups than my students, I still love that. So it's great. But
it gets harder and harder, doesn't it? But if we try and keep up with them, then hopefully we inspire them a bit, but also it's good for us, good for them. So.
Yeah, I think so. So sort of moving on from there. When did the teaching happen in Taekwondo? Did you have been teaching? I think you said. I mean, obviously you've been training quite some time. Was it sort of fairly early in your career, or?
It was fairly early. I mean, I was thinking about it, and I thought, maybe when I'm second dan, I think second dan might be quite good. But not just probably second dan, halfway to third dan in my head. But when I was first dan, was he master? No, he was probably still fifth dan or something at that time. So Mr. Narditzi at the time, now Grandmaster Narditzi, he was running quite a few clubs, and I think it was getting a bit much because he was teaching every day, and he was running around to the countryside, driving from here to there. So he had a club in Sheen, which I still have, and he'd only been running it for, I don't know, 6 months or a year, but I think he just thought, this is too much. And so I was first dan. I don't know how. I think my first dan, but I was fairly new first dan, and he said, do you fancy taking this over? So although I was a first dan, I think I've always been into the technical side of it, and trying to make sure I'm up with the knowledge of everything, and. So he said, do you fancy taking it over? And I wasn't sure, I wasn't too confident, but I did. And then that's 30 lots of years ago now. So it's probably 32 years ago, something like that.
Oh, excellent.
As I say, I still do that one twice a week, as well as a couple of other clubs. So
yeah, brilliant.
I've still got some people, from what then. Not many, but there are a few still surviving and training. Yeah.
Oh, great! Yeah, myself and Master Ogborn, we started our first club in Bath in '83, and that's still going. I was the instructor. And he was my assistant instructor at the time. And we always used to argue, though. We always say, right, do. And he said, no, let's do it like that. So the students got really confused, but they were great. We'd been good mates since we were sort of 8 and 9 years old. So it was a real good friendship, and still friends to this day. But there we go. Yeah. So I mean, one of the things that was made me contact you actually was your MMA, and I think I think it's I'd love to talk about this because we all I mean I liked the early days of the UFC and that type of thing. I'm a little bit undecided about the modern MMA. I sort of like the old MMA because you could distinguish where people came from. Kung Fu, Taekwondo,
I know what you
karate.
mean,
Yeah, and I actually quite like that. That might be an age thing for me, but obviously these days it's very, very difficult, and maybe some people just I don't know. I don't know that much about it. I have to say I'm quite ignorant now. I haven't got a television, so I don't watch any. I only see on. I chucked my TV out many years ago, so I watch a little bit on YouTube now and again, maybe. If there's something coming up. But how did you get into that? How did that start?
Well, I think it was even before UFC. In our Taekwondo clubs, because I think a lot of Taekwondo now is sport, even in ITF, and it's you do your practice for your competitions, and you practice your patterns, and you practice your sparring with ITF, strict ITF competition rules, and then you might do breaking and the jumping kick special technique. But when I was training with Mr. Noditz, as he was then, the main bulk was that, I suppose. But we did a fair bit of, what if this, what if that? So, basic grabs and basic releases. And of course, you've got releases in Dosan, Chungun, Falang, things like that, some of the black belt patterns. But and then we also did, 2-on-1 sparring, and then what if someone's got a stick, or tactics, and there was a fair bit of self-defense, as a lot of clubs still do. But as I say, it has moved, it has changed, as you expect, I suppose. But so from that history, when I did my Taekwondo clubs, I still kept a lot of that self-defense, and what if this, what if that. And so not every week, but certainly once a month, and probably more regularly than that, at the end of a session we do some Taekwondo sparring, and then with or without mats. And mats, some of the halls have mats, some of them don't. But we'd say, right, sparring, but you can get each other in a headlock. So and now catch kicks, and we would just muck around, and it gradually developed into almost like an MMA format. And maybe actually, because obviously in UFC and most MMA competitions now, you have got no groin shots, no eye gouges, no headbutts. There are quite a few rules people don't realise, but they've got these rules. And we weren't eye gouging each other, but we were grabbing, gesturing, headbutts, and we were doing this, doing that, because I think a lot of people in martial arts, at one time or another, whether it's early or later, and whether it comes from you or someone else, you do worry, we're doing this, but we're doing this within these rules and these general, sort of techniques. But in a real situation, am I going to be able to use that effectively? So it wasn't particularly I wanted to do MMA competitions, which this was before UFC. So there were some competitions going in the world. So in Japan and in Brazil, this has been a thing for quite a while, and of course the ancient Greeks. But we just played around with things for self-defense, and for what if situations. And then when UFC came along, like a lot of us, we watched those early videos, and I thought, oh yeah, this is interesting, because you've got this guy who's obviously Hoist Gracie, is really good at the grappling, and then you've got strikers and you've got boxers and taekwondo people, whatever it was, and how do these people do, and what are the problems they come across, what seem to be their weaknesses. So when that came out, I suppose we still now do a lot of self-defense drills, but and I'd say for me that's the most important thing. So people say to me, what's more important, taekwondo or MMA? I go, well, I love both, but actually self-defense is above that.
Yeah.
Being a black belt, you can't guarantee we're going to be able to defend ourselves in a real situation. But I want to give my students, and particularly as they go up the belts, the best chance of doing that. Because hopefully, if people were in a situation and they did get into trouble and were hurt, hopefully they don't think, oh right, Taekwondo is useless, I'm going to give up martial arts, now. But I don't want them to think, wow, that was totally out of my what do you call it? Totally out of my normal sphere.
Yeah.
I want them to think, oh well, I see we have done that and that, but I was just unlucky, or because there was 2 people, 3 people,
Yeah.
It was just the way it went. So yeah, we when UFC came out, we were, particularly, oh, this is interesting, and watched the things and played around with things more, and then as the years went by, so I'm trying to think what year it was, how old I was. I was probably mid-30s, mid to late 30s, and some of my black belts were really getting interested in it, and then started to do. There were very few competitions around then, but some of my black belts were starting to enter competitions, and then I was sort of 40. My first MMA fight was at 41,
Right.
which is fairly crazy. But I thought, well, I've been not pushing, but encouraging, a couple of my guys who are really keen on that to enter. And I thought it'd be nice as a coach and as friend to them that I've done one.
Yeah.
So I thought it'd be really good to do one, and then at least I can say I've done one, I've experienced it, and having sort of encouraged others in, say, well, yeah, I've been there too, sort of thing. So I did, one at 41. Unfortunately, the guy I was supposed to be up against, who was my weight, he pulled out due to injury. And this quite often happens at all levels, because you're training, madly to be as fit as you can and everything, but in the training, it's so easy to get injured. So the guy I was up against pulled out, I think it was a week and a half before. And then they couldn't find anyone my weight. So they said, well, we've got another guy, but would you fight someone heavier? And I said, yeah, okay. Without thinking about it, and considering it too much. I just wanted to, do one. But and I hadn't seen the guy before I got into the cage. This was down in Portsmouth. But when I got in there, the guy was, a good 10 kilos heavier, and that was muscle.
Yeah.
He was a big guy. So I lost that one. So that was just first round, just overpowered me really, and got on top. Referee stopped it, and that was it. So that was disappointing, but it was for first one, really I should have insisted on doing one, and if my students now were doing that, if someone was going to come in, sometimes happens a kilo or two heavy, they can't make the weight, maybe there's a bit of chat between the teams, and you go, yeah, okay. But I would not advise that, and certainly not let many people train with me do that now, because I think in the striking, if someone's, I'm sure you've fought many people, and we all spar, regularly, people bigger, smaller, but if there is, well, even in Taekwondo, if there is a risk of injury, it's often because of those weight differences, isn't it?
Yes.
Even if you've got someone who's being really careful, quite experienced, if you've got someone at 80 kilos and someone at 70, that's a problem often. But in striking, it's not so much. But when you get into grappling, and that strength, it's just really, really is a big thing. So and then so I think it was maybe a year went by, and then I did another one, and then I've done, I think, 6 now.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I think I've done 6 now. So, I think I did the second one was about a year after, and then every one after that has been, maybe 3 years gap. And it's because I've always, I did that first one. I thought I'd just do one, and then the second one, the third one, the fourth one, fifth one, sixth one. I thought I'll just do one more. Because I think what happens is a few years go past, and I think, oh, it'd be nice to do another one, and I just get a bit sort of itchy, and let's get in there again.
Mm.
So the last one was last year, so March last year. So I was only 54. So coming up 55 next week. So from 41 to 54 years old have been my 6 pro fights, and that was the other thing. Now there are a lot of amateur competitions if people want to get involved, and there's low level and higher level, and but back then there wasn't really any low level ones, and it was all pro. And I mean, the pro level wasn't particularly high, but everyone was doing pro rules. So that's just 1 centimeter gloves, the pro gloves, no shin guards, anything. So it was going in at the deep end. But sold my fights have been pro rules, elbows on the ground, etc. But I've just done a few, and it's it's been fun, it's been interesting, and I think I've learned a lot for me and my students. So
yeah, no, fair play. So well, 2 things. Well done you first off for going in there, because I mean you're quite sort of matter of fact about it, but it takes a lot of guts. It takes a lot of guts, and it takes a lot of inner strength to do stuff like that. I've done a few things in the past myself, and even though you go in the back of your mind, there's that what if what if scenario. So well done to you, and also at such an age as well, because MMA is definitely a young person's thing. Definitely, I would say.
Yeah, and I've always been the old. They often look for someone in their maybe 30s, because there's no other idiots in their 40s or 50s, of course. But there's they always look for someone a bit nearer age, and then if they accept, then they drop out from injury, and then I end up with someone in their mid-20s again. But often. Because I have such big gaps between, partly because of my age and partly because of the big gaps, in the more recent MMA fights, I'd say certainly in the last 3 or 4, at a moment when they go, "Are you ready? Are you ready?" I nod, but in my head I'm like, I'm not sure I am ready. Why am I doing this? What the hell? But as I say, as a test, and as a martial artist, to try and very quickly solve that problem, how can we might know a bit about the other guy, we might know a bit about his background and what he's done and what he was like last fight. You can watch fights on YouTube and whatever normally, but to very quickly solve or try and solve that puzzle of how do I beat this guy is fantastic competition, fantastic challenge, I think.
No, well done to you. I mean, I'm sort of sometime this year, maybe starting very soon. I'm doing a series of podcasts called the Mind of a Fighter, the way that they think. Now, for me, I did okay in competition, and but my sort of preparation was that I would work harder than anyone else in my mind. I used to put myself through things that I think they ain't going to do this, and then when I got on the mat, I felt almost stronger than them in my mind. Whether I was or not was a different thing, but that's how I felt, because I went out running 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'd do this and I'd do that, and I'd run here and do that and stuff like that. So I'd never rest. But what sort of fighter were you? Were you? The other thing was that I was always very, very self-motivated. I never had to struggle to train. And that was always a strength for me, because I always enjoyed the physical and also the pain as well. I always enjoyed that side of it, of hurting. And when I hurt, I thought, yes, I'm getting there. So I don't know, what type of fighter were you? How did you approach it?
Actually, just to pick up on something else you said earlier, and then you've sort of repeated there. When people who knew me at school, because there's been a couple of school reunions since then, and these people are like, "You're joking, really?" Because I always have been, and I still consider myself very placid. And you said earlier you quite like being hit, and when people find out I do MMA, especially, they say, "Oh, right, so you like being hit?" And I go, well, "No, no, I don't like being hit." And actually, I mean, in most of my fights, I've hardly been hit,
Yeah.
because I don't like being hit, and I move and I avoid. And I agree with you that sometimes in sparring, whether it's Taekwondo or MMA, sometimes you have to be hit a bit, and
Yeah.
right, okay, yeah, right, now I'm into it,
Yeah.
and that wakes you up, mentally, physically, and you go, right, okay, I've got to do something a bit better here. I've got to move a bit quicker. But yeah, no, I've always been, shy away from physical confrontations, and still now,
Yeah. Yeah.
hard sparring I'm not too keen on, mainly because of I'll get injured. But
Yeah. I know
but
what you
yeah,
mean.
with the I've heard of people doing what you said, going for runs at silly times, and starting training at 5, 6 in the morning, whatever. I never pushed it to that, but I think that is a good mindset, because you think when you get in here, you can fairly confidently think
Mm.
they have not been doing what I've been doing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, having said that, I have been, and still am, I think, well motivated. So it's like sometimes, my students probably don't know this, but if I'm if I'm teaching at the club, and normally I'll join in with at least some aspect of the class. But if I've had a day where we've got a lot of beginners, or people come up competitions and there's been even numbers, so there's no need for me to step in and help pair
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Sometimes at the end of the session, I'll think, God, blimey, I didn't do much yesterday at that session. I didn't do much tonight. Everyone's gone, and I'll just do like 10 laps of the hall.
Yeah.
Do a minute of star jumps, a minute of press ups, a minute of sit ups.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I've got that, but certainly also training up for the fights,
Right.
because I will train with a few people who can push me, and maybe show me some techniques and polish up things, but largely it's been training myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'll train Taekwondo and MMA with everyone, and everyone at Taekwondo is really good, on my black belts, if they know I'm coming up for a fight. And that they do know, because not because I'll talk about the fight, but because suddenly the warm-ups and the training will get just really hot. We'll get terrible. And they go, "Oh, has he got another fight coming up? Oh, great." But yeah, I'll I will push myself, and
Yeah.
do crazy amounts of
Yeah.
sparring pad work, and sit-ups, and
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Well, no, brilliant. It's just I have to put a caveat there. I mean, I don't, with the hitting bit. What I like to do is, if people hit me and they hit me hard, and I think it's their best shot, and I go, "Well, is that all you got? Because I'm still here." It's almost that sort of mentality, because I've been and then that almost sort of like lifts me up, and I come back. So it's but yeah.
I think to realise obviously you can get injured, but you're okay, and you can take still some trouble. Yeah.
I remember doing a full contact fight in the 80s in the ring, and I got absolutely wasted. But I was quite happy. I was quite happy because it hit me with some big shots, and I still stayed standing. I made it through to the end. So I was quite
was that
happy.
Was that Taekwondo or kickboxing?
It was actually kickboxing. It was the guy was actually world champion. It was Tommy Williams from America. I think he died quite young. He was quite experienced at the time. I was quite young. He was 33, and he'd been world champion, and he hit me everywhere really. But I was quite happy. I went in with somebody who knocked a lot of people out, and I walked out. So that was my saving grace. But and also it's interesting what you said, because when I met you for the first time, you did come over as being quite reserved and quite placid, and I thought, and then when I saw mixed martial arts, I thought, wow, this doesn't seem like the same person to me. It seemed very, very, very different. No, I was going to say, but also I like that, because a lot of people, particularly when I was in my 20s, I was actually really shy, a really shy person. I wouldn't say a boo to a goose. And as I've got older, particularly in martial arts, I've got more confidence, so I can talk a bit more and talk to people. But people used to look at me and think, I can't believe you're in there doing that, and this is you. You know,
yeah.
So
Yeah, I think it's just having to switch it on at a certain time, isn't it? So which obviously comes back to self-defense. Hopefully they use it, but if the situation occurs, then again, hopefully you're passive and trying to calm them down and avoid fighting. But if you need to, then you need to.
Yeah. That's brilliant. No, that's awesome. So, I mean, my last question really is, what for the future? Are you going to fight again, or is this it, or what else?
Well, my wife's not nearby, so it might be such. My wife and my sister are just like, no more. I think probably the last one, was my last one. So March last year. Just really because I've been very lucky with injuries, really. In training Taekwondo and in MMA, from fighting and from just training. I think last year sort of it can happen to anyone at any age, really. But I was training up for the last one, and everything was going well. But then a few days before, I pulled something in my back.
All right.
And it was just horrendous. Really horrible. Back when this was in my back, spasm, and it sort of eased off from a few days before. Eased off for coming up for the fight, but just warming up for the fight, I thought, oh my God, this is terrible. So at the end of the first round, all my fights on YouTube, but yeah, type in a lot. I'm trying to remember the guy's name. Can't remember the guy's name now. That's terrible. Anyway, the March-ish last year.
Yeah.
The first round was good. I won the first round, easily. But at the end of the first round, I went up to the referee and said, "Sorry, I'm going to have to call it there." And he was like, "What?" And I said, "No, I had a back injury a little week, and I can just feel it. And I'm either going to do myself more damage, or because I can't react quickly enough and do the things I want to do, I'm going to get badly injured." So I said, "I call it." So I actually lost that fight. But it's a weird fight because if you watch it, you go, "Yeah, that was good," and I'm happy with that round. But yeah, it's had to just pull out. So
well. Hey, listen, we've sort of come to the end of the time, but a number of things. I want to say thank you ever so much for taking the time to do this, and also for sharing your insights, in your Taekwondo and your mixed martial arts and so on. I wish you all the best in everything you do, and I hope that the future is good for all of us in martial arts, because we're sort of all in the same game, And I think that
hopefully we can meet up again.
Definitely.
There'll be any other ITF England seminars or opportunities to train, share.
Definitely. And if you've got anyone listening to this, I'll be hopefully I'll don't go away. I'll speak to you after we stop this. But if you've got anything you want to put in the show notes for people to know and see, then we'll do that as well. But just remains to say thank you very much to the Living Martial Arts podcast fans. I'll be seeing you very soon. It's me, the Dark Master, saying thank you very much to Master Russell. Dennis, thank you. Getting tongue-tied there. Thank you.
Thank you.